Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this online fire safety essentials presentation, targeting the community of Darlington and surrounds. My name is Raj, and together with my co-presenter, Garth Wesson, we will be delivering this online presentation. Say hi to the group, Garth.
G'day. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Garth. And it's also great to have Tony Wind on board as well. Tony is the CFA Brigade Captain at Darlington. Say hi, Tony.
Yeah, hi, everyone.
Thanks, Tony. So survival, risk management, and the preservation of life is our primary focus of this presentation. A little bit about us. Well, both Garth and I are casual employees with the CFA, and we are passionate about delivering effective community education. I've been a volunteer with my local brigade in Woodford, not too far from Darlington, actually, probably for, it's over 10 years now, and time has certainly flown in that role. What about you, Garth? What's some of your background?
So I've been a brigade member for just over 25 years now at Pomboneet, also not too far away, and been a casual presenter for some years now with CFA also, yes.
Wonderful. Thanks, Garth. Now, as is traditional in all our presentations, I would like to begin by our acknowledgement of country, by offering a respectful acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're both meeting and hosting this meeting today, namely the Gunditjmara people and the Kire Wurrung people, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and of course, any other Aboriginal people here today. For your information, the Kire Wurrung people owned and cared for the land between Mount Emu Creek and the Hopkins River up to Mount Hamilton and the Western Otways from the Gellibrand River to the Hopkins River, with a northern boundary at Lake Bolac and Darlington, so a huge expanse of land. I'm going to hand over now to Garth just to talk to you about the technology that we're actually going to be using today. Garth?
Thank you, Raj. Yes, so today's presentation will be a webinar. This means that you don't have the ability to turn on your video or your audio, but you will be able to interact with us. There'll be some polls which will pop up from time to time, but at any time you can use the functions down the bottom, the raise hand function if you want to grab our attention, or also the chat function. Yes, it's a recording of this webinar. That means that people will be able to watch it later. We actually don't let you put your cameras on because it's a security thing, a safety thing, that we don't want to be looking in your homes and recording the inside of your homes or anyone who might be in there. So it's just for your own safety as much as anything. There will be some animations and short videos and photos throughout the session. We won't overload you with PowerPoint slides, but we do want your interaction. So yes, we'll be doing some responses, and we would like to actually for you to try out the chat function now. So if the people who are online there, if you could possibly find the chat button, and where it says to everyone, you'll find you can click in there and just type which town or locality you are listening to us from and watching us from tonight. That would be fantastic.
And while our participants are going to be doing that, I think it might be also interesting to say that there's a lot of information that we're going to go through during the course of the next sort of hour or so. There's no need to take notes. All of this information and the resources that we referred to are available through the link that's provided at the end of the presentation. So listen and absorb, and feel free to ask questions. And I can see lots of people are already giving us lots of chat there, Garth.
Yes, that's great. It's wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I'm just popping that chat up there so I can see it. Yes, all right, Buchan, Darlington, that's fantastic. Little local people. Thank you for that. Now we do also have a small poll which we're going to start with, which I will just now launch. So similarly to the chat, but this you'll see will pop up on your screens. Should be there now. Now it actually has 4 questions. So you might need to scroll down to answer those, to see all 4 of them and to answer those. All our polls are anonymous, so we cannot see who's answering in what way. And they are all optional. If you don't wish to do them, that's totally fine. But of course, it does help us for our research ongoing and helps our evaluation teams see how the community is going and also how these programs are going and the value that is in these. So we'd love you to answer it if you will. I'll give you a few more seconds to for those who haven't quite finished. Okay.
It's also good to note that these are totally anonymous. We don't know who's answering what. So it's really about learning from each other in terms of, and it gives us some idea of how to pitch our presentation depending on the audience that we're serving.
All right, I think I'll end that poll and I'll show you the results there. So we can see everyone who's online has been here a fair while, 10+ years. All of you, that's fantastic. Have you been, everybody who's online has been to a CFA meeting before? And yeah, let's see, who had you find out about it? So some were recommended and through CFA social media. So that's fantastic. That's really good information for us. And your knowledge levels from medium through to very high. Oh, that's wonderful. All right, well look, I will stop sharing that now and we'll continue talking. So thank you all for that. It looks like everybody managed to get that working. Where are we? That's great. All right. So what will you learn tonight? Oh yes, Raj has already spoken about that. So we will be talking about the fact that this is an entry-level fire safety program. You'll be learning about understanding local fire risks, what to expect from a fire, how do you know if there is a fire in your area, some planning and decision-making, and surviving if your plans fail or if you get caught out.
Okay, so moving on to the very first point of our learnings today, understanding local fire risks. And before I go into this, I just want to set some context to the area of Darlington. You know, this presentation is tailored for your environment, for sure, and the surrounding environment. Darlington itself is located in the municipality of Corangamite in the Western District of Victoria, 194 kilometres southwest of Melbourne. Darlington was actually an early place of white settlement back in the day. And the small town of Darlington sits on the Mount Emu Creek, half in Corangamite Shire and half in the Moyne Shire. So an interesting location there. Travellers like myself and perhaps you as well, Garth and Tony, on the busy Hamilton Highway recognise the historic feature of the Bluestone Elephant Bridge Hotel, which was actually established in 1842. The historic Elephant Bridge abutments are on the Victorian Heritage Register, and rightfully so. Other features of Darlington have passed into history, such as the school, the church, and the post office, but Darlington has an active community hosting art classes, cinema, and many other events at its Mechanics Institute Hall. And I'm sure that perhaps Clive, Fee, or even Pat might have considerable knowledge of that, of days gone by and what's happening now in that very active and vibrant community of Darlington. I've been told that the Recreation Reserve hosts the Western Speedway, and both locals and visitors enjoy picnics on Nuggets Flat at the historic river crossing. Now, Tony, is there any truth in that? Is that what you guys do on those balmy, warm days?
Yes, we might occasionally go down there and have a quiet ale or a vino, of course, down there, and it's a lovely little spot with platypus and everything else down there.
Fantastic, fantastic. And when the bridge was built in 1849, the place was known as Elephant Bridge, as the track passed quite close to the prominent volcanic cone of Mount Elephant. Now, one thing that we have to remember, and this is why I placed the context like this, is that there's a huge amount of natural beauty across the rural landscape. You know, when I drive through there on my way to Melbourne or back home to Woodford, but what we have to remember is that along with this natural beauty comes the ever-present threat of fire. So let's start by exploring the Victorian landscape a bit further. Fire has been present in the Australian continent for millions of years. There's no doubt about that. And fire has been responsible and very significant in shaping much of the landscape. Many fires were started by lightning. Our Aboriginal people used fire for many thousands of years to care for country. The fires were a tool that encouraged the growth and extent of grasslands. The fires also served to enhance hunting, reduce levels of fuel, and keep vegetation from becoming too dense and hard to walk through. Bushfire record keeping only really started in earnest around about 1851. This slide that you're currently viewing shows the range of landscapes that we have throughout Victoria. We have all the usual suspects of grassland, bushland, mountainous forest areas, and of course, farmland. What does this all mean? Let's look at this a bit further. Victoria is clearly one of the most bushfire-prone parts of the world, but what we have to remember is that the risk throughout the state is very different. The map that you're looking at now on your slide considers the state with view to these different localities. This map shows the different weather districts, and we'll refer to weather districts throughout this presentation. Each weather district will have its own level of fire risk. So if we consider the southwest down to the bottom left-hand side, and we've got Mortlake, Ararat, Cassiterton, Portland, and Colac highlighted, but you'll know geographically where Darlington actually sits in that southwest corridor, if you like. Now, each of these weather districts has its own level of fire risk, and this is dependent on a number of factors, including what we call the topography. And for those of you who may not know what I mean by topography, this is the lay of the land, the hills, the depressions, the nooks and crannies, the lay of the land. This will be an important factor when it comes to fire and how rapidly fire spreads or otherwise. And we'll talk more about that very shortly. Another thing that we need to take into consideration is what we call the seasonal outlook. What do I mean by the seasonal outlook? Well, this describes the overall weather trend of what's happening in your weather district. The new spring outlook shows in the increased risk of grass fires. And the quotation on your slide is a quote given by our current CFA chief. I'll just give you a couple of seconds to read that. And the latest weather data shows that parts of Victoria are forecast to have a wet spring. That may not come as news to many of us. This is predicted to lead to continued strong grass growth and the potential of increased grass fire conditions once the vegetation dries out or cures. So once this high fuel load cures, there'll be a large amount of fuel available for ignition or for lighting. Consequently, there is a high chance that these grass fires will move quickly and threaten properties and life, as we've got stated there. Now, what we need to be remembered is that like every season, there is a need to be prepared for a fire season or a fire that could happen due to this high fuel load. New climate research by the CFA reveals that the number of high-risk bushfire days could triple in some parts of Victoria by the end of the century. That's rather an alarming fact, I'm sure you'll all agree. I'm going to hand over to Garth now to talk a bit more about the local vegetation in your part of the world, in Darlington. What kind of type of landscape do you see when you're looking out your window now? Over to you, Garth.
Thanks, Raj. Yeah, local vegetation. So I mean, Darlington is primarily grassland, farmland, with crops. So it will dry out quite quickly in the summer. You'll have, that fuel load early. Not so much forest there. There are sections of forest. There are windbreaks, which can, if they catch fire, can cause ember showers. But the grass fires, if they were to happen, it can be quite fast moving and spread quickly and generate large amounts of heat but only for quite a short period. So that's your local vegetation, really, and your local dangers, local risks. Have a think about what could cause a problem on a day if a fire were to break out. Obviously, we have there's the highway there. There's a lot of people going to be travelling through who are unfamiliar with the area. They may put themselves and put others in danger by trying to get through somewhere which is unsafe to do so. Obviously, you got the big power lines through that area, as well as all your standard power lines. We have issues there. I know we had, I think it was 2 years ago, just a little further down the highway from you, when the big pylons all fell down in that hot day with the wind, and there were 6 or so of those big pylons came down. Quite a dangerous situation. Anyone within probably a kilometre of those, if they'd actually got out and trod on the ground, could have electrocuted themselves. So very serious. Obviously, where there is trees growing along the roadsides on a hot and windy day, these can be a major risk to your being able to travel anywhere. And as I said, the tourists, creating chaos on the road as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to pop up another poll, which is called Understanding Local Fire Risks. And this is a multiple choice. You can tick as many of these ones as you like. So what are some of the things that make your local area a high-risk area? I've probably mentioned a few of them. Some of them might be relevant to Darlington, some of them might not, but happy for you to answer if you're free to. Once again, they're all anonymous and they're all optional. Give you all
it might be, while our audience is attempting the poll, it might be also a good point to mention that, when we talk about the speed of our fast-moving grass fires and the relationship to topography, the hills, and particularly with Darlington being quite a hilly terrain, the speed of fires is affected by that terrain, and fires will travel faster uphill than they will downhill. So that's an important consideration for those of you who may not know that fact. I know that a lot of you more experienced firefighters will know that. It's a relationship between radiation, radiated heat, and convective heat. When a fire climbs a hill, there's greater contact or touch points with those flames, which is actually driven by the wind. So the wind is an important player when it comes to the direction of fire and also the speed of fire. Thanks, Garth.
So there, I'll share that poll with you. So yeah, it looks like from the experience of you there on the ground, a high fuel load and the potential speed of grass fires are the two that you consider the greatest risk, followed by numerous fires, high tourists in the area, and to a lesser extent the narrow winding roads and trees over the roads. that's great. I think you've pretty well covered things there. I'll hand back to Raj now. I shall close out. And
fantastic. Thanks for that, Garth. I might just want to bring Tony in here. Tony, do you think this is in your opinion, is this a fair account of the conditions in Darlington in terms of fire and local risk?
Yes, also too, we've got quite a few crops, especially if we've had a heavy crop. We've got high stubbles, and the stubbles are extremely flammable, and they would move very fast through that, be very scary with pretty high flame heights as well.
So in terms of advice to your community, what kind of advice would you say to them in terms of the danger of local risk? What can they do to protect themselves?
If it's a bad day, don't leave it to the last minute. We don't have a safe place of refuge here at Darlington. We have one at Derry, but you'd have to travel along the highway to get there, which could be a risk in itself. So I'd be recommending to leave early if you keep a watch on what's happening. Also, too, we can have the power go out, and that would be a serious thing for pumps and also communication with the radios and things like that as well.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So moving on to the activities of Tony and the Darlington Brigade. Now, with my conversations with Tony, we believe there's 20 active members at the Darlington Brigade, although there's a lot more listed when you look online at the Darlington Brigade. But of course, not all of them are active members. So 20 active members is what we've decided. They look after, they work really hard. The brigade 24/7 do a tremendous effort to keep everyone safe. But we have to look realistically at the figures as well. What is it that they're actually doing in terms of the population that they serve? Darlington has a population of about 107 people, according to the 2016 census, spread across 59 properties and dwellings, which can be quite far in between as well. So I often pose the very rhetorical question here, which is, on a bad fire day, how realistic would it be to expect a tanker and a crew on your drive, at your farm, at your business, at the hotel, for example, to put out and assist you on a bad fire day? And I'd like to for you to mull over that. The maths work for themselves, don't they? It's actually quite a difficult expectation to think that a fire truck and crew will be there to help you on a bad fire day. And of course, the crew can be pulled in other directions as well, helping neighbouring communities, other areas. Would you agree with that, Tony?
Yes, that's right. On a bad day, we could be called out in the strike scene. If that was the case, we still have one truck that would remain in Darlington to serve that community. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so what to expect from fire? Now, as we know, Victoria's had a lot of fires. 2 summers ago, we saw huge fires in multiple parts of the state. What I want to do now is really get underneath the skin of fire and talk about 2 key elements that are the very basics of fire and fire behavior. The first one is Ember Attack. We use that word very casually these days, embers and Ember Attack, but what is it and how does it happen? And of course, radiant heat. What is radiant heat? So, Ember Attack. We have to remember that in grassland areas like Darlington, there are a number of threats to your home and your property. The first one is what we call direct flame impact. And this is the idea of fire and flames getting to your doorstep. And we often say that if you have fuel to your doorstep, you will have fire at your doorstep. So the idea here will be to try and break that continuity of fuel to your front door. And we can do that in a number of ways, such as having driveways or a gravel path or a vegetative patch, vegetables, etc. Anything that will break that continuity of fuel. And the second one is Ember Attack. And I'm about to play you an animation. And this animation is very graphic in nature, and we make no apologies for the graphic nature of this animation. But if it's such that you feel that this could anyway be disturbing for you, please feel free to look away. The animation will last approximately two minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes. It's designed to give you a real life account of exactly what happens during an Ember attack. So this is Ember Attack.
During a bushfire, embers will reach your home long before the flames do. Ember attacks are the most common way that houses catch fire. Embers are burning leaves, twigs, and pieces of bark. They help the bushfire spread by starting spot fires ahead of the main fire front. Short distance ember attacks happen when leaves and small pieces of bark are blown from burning trees. The intense shower of sparks that forms fills the air with hot, burning embers, which will land on nearby vegetation and properties. The hot embers can easily land and get into your clothes and burn your skin, eyes, and airways. Small fires will start all around you and quickly become uncontrollable. The resulting chaos creates confusion as the fire seems to come from many directions, meaning it will be difficult to make good decisions about your safety. The experience will be physically exhausting and emotionally traumatic. Long-distance ember attack is caused by large bushfires that generate intense heat. As the hot air rises, it forms a column of smoke that sucks in air like a vacuum, increasing the intensity of the fire. The updraft in the column lifts embers, like large pieces of burning ribbon bark, hundreds of meters into the air, where strong winds can carry them many kilometers beyond the fire front. On Black Saturday, embers travelled more than 30 kilometres ahead of the main fire. When these embers land, they often start fires where leaves naturally accumulate, like in gutters, doorways and garden beds. So while you might think you're safe when a bushfire is far away, embers can fall from the sky and land around your home long before you even know there's a fire. But remember, your home isn't the only thing under threat during an ember attack. By the time you realise the danger, it might be too late as escape routes become jammed. Embers can also start fires on roads and block them completely, making late evacuation dangerous or impossible. That's why leaving early, before a fire starts, is always your safest option.
I think the message is quite clear there, isn't it? You know, as Tony said earlier, is not to be in harm's way. And we often talk about risk management and risk preservation and life preservation. Why be in harm's way when you know there's an imminent danger on its way? So I hope that animation has given you some idea of the unpredictable nature of Mother Earth and the way that she can turn. Nature is unpredictable. Leaving early has to be the best option because Ember Attack is non-discriminate. You will get fires approaching ahead of the fire front. I'm now going to hand over to Garth while I cue up the video animation for Radiant Heat. Thanks, Garth.
No worries. Thanks, Raj. So radiant heat, yeah, look, grass fires produce a huge amount of radiant heat. It's enough to kill or injure people from a distance. So radiant heat is the heat you feel from a distance when you're not actually touching something that's burning. But that heat can cause death during a fire. It's the most likely way for people to die in fires is by radiant heat. So this animation, once again, some people may find distressing. If so, please move away. It runs for about 2.5 minutes. and we'll talk a little bit about it after it's finished. Thanks, Raj.
Thanks, Garth.
Victoria is one of the most bushfire-prone parts of the world. Every summer, bushfires threaten properties and lives. But did you know it's not the flames that kill most bushfire victims? No, it's the radiant heat. Most victims die from the effects of radiant heat long before they're reached by the flames. Radiant heat is what you feel when you sit next to a campfire. If a campfire heats up to 2 kilowatts per square metre, you'll feel that it's too hot and will want to move back from the fire. If you don't, this amount of radiant heat is enough to cause burns and blisters in as little as 40 seconds. At 12 kilowatts, it can cause some materials like dry timber to ignite. A bushfire can reach 100 kilowatts, and the effects can be truly catastrophic. For humans, radiant heat can cause burns from 100 meters away and cause a dangerous increase in body temperature. Radiant heat can cause the rapid onset of heat stroke. Heat stroke damages your brain, meaning you won't be able to concentrate to make good decisions as the fire arrives. Other impacts include severe damage of internal organs and death. There are some things you can do if you're caught in a fire. Cover your skin with long-sleeved natural fibre clothing, like wool. It's also useful to know that radiant heat only travels in straight lines and can't bend around corners. So, sheltering behind or inside solid structures may help protect you. But be aware, radiant heat will travel straight through glass. The best defense against radiant heat is a simple one. If you're not anywhere near a bushfire, its radiant heat can't hurt you. Leaving early is always your safest option.
Yeah, that's such a great little video, 2.5 minutes. It says so much. I'll just say it again, radiant heat is the biggest killer during a bushfire. So I hope that's helped explain why radiant heat is so dangerous. It significantly affects your ability to think clearly and make good decisions. So again, we'll say, leaving safest option, so you're nowhere near the radiant heat. I mean, you can see in that photograph up there now, that's a house that had vinyl cladding on top of its weatherboards, and that hasn't been impacted by flames. That is just the heat coming from those flames through the air has melted away the weatherboard, the plastic weatherboards, the vinyl weatherboards. And similarly with the sign, it's actually melted the writing off the sign without it actually being subject to flame. So this is an incredibly intense heat. Thank you, Raj. I'll hand back to you.
Wonderful. One thing that the CFA does do whenever there's been a fire event, and we talk a lot about emotional intelligence, because sometimes when people speak the truth as they see it, it's often far more powerful than if someone was to sit down and start writing some fancy words. And what you've got on the slide in front of you are some words said by people who were caught in a fire situation. And I think the words speak volumes. And I might just give you a couple of seconds to have a read through there. And the underlying message that we're trying to say here is all the way through this presentation is about making that call to leave early, not to be there when the fire arrives. Knowing what to expect of fire. So we've spoken a bit about the makeup of fire, the Ember Attack and the radiant heat. We've spoken about its ability, the ability of fire to impact your decision-making process. We've also understand that being in a fire situation can be extremely stressful and traumatic, and we don't need to labor that point anymore. We know that the situation can be unpredictable because roads may become blocked. Your means of escape will no longer be there. And particularly in the case of Darlington, for example, with one road in and one road out along the highway there. We've spoken about the speed at which embers can attack and travel, sometimes up to 30 kilometers ahead of the fire front. And of course, the silent killer, radiant heat, as Garth has so aptly described to us. All of these put you in a very vulnerable position. We do not want you to be in that vulnerable position, and neither does Tony in the brigade. It's about taking ownership, understanding what you're up against, and having some means of being out of harm's way, leaving early. We're going to spend a bit of time now talking about, well, how do you know if there's a fire? And I apologize for the simplicity of this part of the presentation, but these are the tools that we have. These tools have stood the test of time and are around to provide warnings and early warning system for you to make a decision based on what you know about fire behavior in your area. And by far, the first and foremost is the fire danger rating, the FDR. We're all familiar with this. We've all seen it. We often see it on the roadside, on the approach to our townships or near a CFA station. Sometimes you'll see it on the television or on social media as well. There is a bit of confusion relating to what the fire danger rating actually means. So I might get Garth just to launch our next poll, which asks the question, well, what does the fire danger rating actually mean? Garth?
Yes, I'm just giving. There's that one.
Yep, thank you. So take your time and see if we can go through the 3 questions that we have in this particular poll, which looks at, well, for question 1, what does the fire danger rating actually mean? Does anyone know how many code red days have happened in your region in the last 5 years? And also, how many extreme days have happened in the region in the last 5 years? We'll talk a bit more about code red and extreme very shortly. Might just give you a couple more minutes. Yeah, feel free to have a go. This is actually totally anonymous. We don't know who's answering what, and it's all about understanding and learning from each other. That's great.
All right, well, I'll share those results with you now. Yeah.
So the first fact that I'd like to give to you is that the FDR is an indicator of how bad a fire would be if one was to start. Okay, so that's what the answer is to number 1. It's not an indicator of how likely a fire will start. Okay. In terms of code red days,
bit to that, if you like, Raj.
Yes, please.
So fire danger rating is composed, it's made up by the Bureau of Meteorology and the Country Fire Authority, and there are scientific experts who consider a whole range of factors, and they include the predicted temperature for the day, the predicted humidity for the day, wind speed, how fast the wind's going to get, but also how dry the fuel is. So there are people who go out every day, grind up gum leaves and check the moisture content of the fuel, and the grass, similarly, how cured the grass is, and also how much moisture is in the soil, and also things like whether there's changes in the wind being predicted for that day. All those things are put together by these scientists, and they come up with a pretty rainbow and give us a colour for the day. Makes it really easy for us. They do all the hard work.
Wonderful. Thanks, Garth. In terms of question 2 and the number of code red days, there's actually been 0 code red days in the last 5 years in your region. Question 3, the number, it shouldn't be severe or extreme, it should just be one or the other. We go for extreme. In terms of extreme, there have been 2 extreme days in your area in the last 5 years. So just a bit of intel there on the fire danger rating. I'm going to stop sharing that now and just cross out of that. If I just have a quick review of the fire danger rating, it's a scale from low to moderate to code red. It's an increasing scale in terms of the degree of severity of a fire. The main take home from this is that it doesn't necessarily need to be a severe, extreme, or code red day for it to be a potentially bad fire day. It can actually happen at the very high end or the high end of the spectrum as well. So that's just one learning from that there. Let's just go into this in a bit more detail as we discover the elements of severe, extreme, and code red. What do we mean when we hear the word severe? On a severe day, we can expect hot, dry, and possibly windy conditions. And if a fire starts and takes hold on a severe day, it may be uncontrollable, and maybe. Conversely, an extreme day, as we move to the further right of the spectrum, an extreme day, expect extremely hot, dry, and windy conditions. If a fire starts on an extreme day and takes hold, it will be most definitely uncontrollable. It will also be unpredictable and fast moving. Spot fires, as we saw in the Ember Attack animation, will start and move quickly and will come from many different directions. So you've got the added element of spot fires and the rapidity of the fire, the speed of the fire. Also, always unpredictable. Code red, the most extreme end of the fire danger rating. These are the worst possible conditions for a bush or grass fire. Our Australian homes are definitely not designed or constructed in any way to withstand fire under these conditions. As Tony said earlier, the safest place to be is to be away from the high-risk bushfire area, to be away from that source of danger. What I'd like to do now is link all this together and stress to you that armed with this knowledge that you have now of fire behaviour, of the fire danger rating, try and use this as a trigger point for you to know when you're going to leave when the fire is approaching or when there's a fire in your locality. Are you going to leave when you have the severe warning, or are you going to wait till it gets extreme, by which time it may well be too late? You need to make a decision and stick to that decision. We call it a fire plan. Make a decision of when you're going to leave, where you're going to go, how are you going to get there, what's your route going to be, and what happens if you can't leave. And a lot of these considerations we're now going to talk about. But clearly, leaving a high-risk fire area the day before or the night before is obviously going to be the best option. The do not wait, waiting and seeing is not really an option, because we know that fires can travel extremely fast, particularly if it's a forested area or a thick bush or long dry grass areas. So the vegetation will have a lot to do with the rapidity of the fire. We spoke about fuel load earlier and the fact that we are going through a wet spring and fuel load will be high. Armed with this information, know what your triggers are going to be for you to leave. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes just talking about this very busy slide that you can see in front of you right now. Today's world is full of information overload. I often call this infobesity, an overload of information. We are constantly being bombarded from many directions, whether it's a chat with a neighbor over the fence, overhearing a conversation in the cafe, or a social media comment. These are all regarded as informal sources of information. Not everything we read or hear is accurate, despite good intentions. And I'm sure you'll all agree with this now. We've got this thing around COVID that's happening at the moment. What's real? What's fact? There's a lot of misinformation out there. It's no different with emergency management. If you're going to make decisions about your safety, about the safety of your family and your community, you need to double check that it's correct. The CFA advocates for formal sources of information. Some of the ones that are listed and that you can see on your slide now are such sources of formal information. They are credible, they're evidence-based, and they're often real-time information about fire behavior or any emergency management behavior in your area. Tony mentioned the radio and local news in the early part of the presentation. This is a key player when it comes to knowing what's happening during an emergency fire. Let me just paint the scenario. To be in a fire environment is a dark, disorientating, noisy, noxious place. And your only connection with the outside world, because remember, in the event of fire, as Tony said earlier, communications are often lost. Phone towers go down, telephone lines go down. A battery-operated radio may well be your only link with the outside world, informing you of what emergency services are doing in your locality to get you out of harm's way. The second is the Vic Emergency app. By far, something that you should all have on your phones, on your mobile phones. Absolutely critical in emergency in terms of fire behavior knowledge or intel in your area. You can actually custom the app to increase the radius of coverage so you can plan an escape route if you find yourself surrounded by fires and having roads that are perhaps inaccessible. Let's discuss the Vic Emergency app just a little bit more as we move forward through this presentation. When we talk about the Vic Emergency app, there's a triage of messagings that come out that are all color coded. It begins with the advice message. I'm not going to label these greatly because I know that you all will be fully aware of this content. But just to refresh, the advice warning, it's indicative that an incident is occurring or has occurred in your area. It may also indicate that the event is now subsided, but just to monitor. It's no longer a danger to you. Purely advice. The second in the triage, the watch and act. Purely by its phrasing, watch and act. Remember that an emergency is developing nearby. Be prepared to take action if you need to protect yourself and others. Red, emergency warning, double exclamation marks. You are in imminent danger. You need to take action immediately, or else you will indeed be impacted. But remember, do not wait for a warning. Use these also in your trigger point, in your plan of action, your fire plan, to make that move to leave the area of danger. Let's talk now a bit about evacuation. An evacuation notice will come through when you are asked to evacuate at an appropriate time. Community information in blue is purely that, indicative of anything that's happened in your locality. But do not wait for a warning yet again. Leave early, look for
have you lost Raj, Tony?
Yes, I have.
Oh dear, okay. Yes, don't wait for a warning. Communications can fail. I would say that's a very good sign. Don't wait for a warning. Hang on a sec. I will just try and pull a slide deck up on my computer if Raj doesn't come back before I get that done. Okay. All right, just will only be a moment. Yep, yeah, I'm the host now. Raj has dropped out. Okay. Hold on, everybody. Here we go. All right, just find out where we're up to. Here, about here. And there, that. And get rid of that. And I'll share my screen. And we're back up and running. Thank you, everybody, for hanging on while that happened. Let's assume that a fire started somewhere near Darlington and the fire started. Oh, there are we. There's some fire starting on the left-hand side of our screen. It's going to take a little while before anybody realises that it started, and 5 minutes or so in, someone's dialed 000. Tony's got his pages gone off. He's heading down to the fire station. Everybody's heading for the truck, but nothing's happened on the Vic Emergency app yet because no one's got to the fire yet. 10 minutes on, the fire's starting to build. It's travelling across the paddocks. As you can see, your house is only probably 18 minutes away from where the fire started. So if you're waiting for your app to go off, an advice message gets released because Tony's just got to the fire and he's going, well, this is big, it's heading towards some houses. We'd better get an advice message out. He radios into Ballarat. They contact the local duty officer. He jumps on, makes a couple of phone calls, gets an advice message put out. 20 minutes, wow, the fire's already hit your house. You haven't got an emergency warning. You haven't got anything because it happened close to where your house is. This can happen any day with any fire if it starts near your house. As you can see there, it's been updated to an emergency warning, but guess what? It's already past your house. 30 minutes there, it's off on its way. Tony's chasing it across the paddocks, trying to protect the next house. So that's just one possible scenario how things could go. So what we say there, use your senses, stay alert, be looking out. Don't close your house up, pull all your curtains, turn on your air conditioner and think it's not going to happen to you. Look out the windows. Have a listen. Is there sirens? Is there crackling? Is there odd things? Are birds stopped making noises? Are birds making more noise than usual? Use your nose, use your sense of smell. Is there a smell of smoke? Also with vision, sometimes you notice that the sky goes that odd colour and the sunlight changes colour due to smoke in the air. These are the things that we can look out for. So it's not just expecting the electronics and the authorities to be letting you know what's going on. Use your own senses. These are incredibly powerful and have served us well for many, many thousands of years. So don't forget to rely on those. So that brings us to planning and decision making. Up till now, we've talked about the risks in your area, what it would be like to experience a fire and how to stay informed and know if there's a fire. Now I'm going to run you through a hypothetical situation so we can see how this plays out in the real world. So it's an extreme day. You can see we've got the big red dot there showing you it's an extreme day today. A fire has started a short distance from your home. It's 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. You look outside, you can see it's already hot and windy. The morning news is reporting today's an extreme fire danger rating day. Jump in your car, drive off to work, go into town to do some shopping, whatever your thing is for a Wednesday. You can see the little branches breaking off from trees and you can feel the heat coming through the glass of the windows in your car. About lunchtime, and you hear people talking about a fire started a little way north of Darlington, maybe up in Fight or somewhere. You jump on the Vic Emergency app to find out whereabouts, and you see it started a little way away from your home, but not too far. Jump in your car, start heading back home, make sure everything's okay. As you get closer to your home, you see the road's blocked by police. Wind down your window and they tell you it's not safe to go into the area. Fire's burning, trees have come down on the road. You have to find somewhere else to go until the road's reopened. Now, what does this mean for you? Ooh, okay, let's look at another possible scenario. Same day. So this time you jump on the Vic Emergency app, you can see the fire still a little way from you. There's that little shaded yellow area, the advice area. It hasn't quite covered your house. So you decide you're going to go home, important stuff. You got the cat there and the dog, papers, drive home. It's pretty windy, you can smell the smoke. It's hot. You check the app again. The little triangle on the screen, the little yellow bit, still an advice message, should have enough time. You get into your home, you run around, you're grabbing important things, running them out to the car. You got the cat box. Oh, I need some dry food for the cat. Who knows? The dog. Oh, can I put the dog in with the cat? I have to put the dog on the front seat. Maybe I'll put the cat on the front seat, put the dog in the back. Okay, what do we need? Photos. Yeah, I've got photos. Birth certificates. Have I got everyone's birth certificate? Oh, this is taking a bit longer than I thought. Then you notice little patches of smoke starting to come up on the lawn, and the pile of leaves that you'd raked up over in the corner is starting to smoulder. Embers have started falling near your home. You feel a surge of adrenaline pump through your body. You're out of time. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Can you still drive down the street? Is there somewhere safe you can get to? Or do you need to stay in your home? Can you grab the garden hose and try and put out those fires? Is there water? Is the power still on? These are all decisions you'll have to make. You'll have to consider. Where are the kids? Are they at school? Are they at home? You know, do you have a neighbour who's not terribly mobile? You need to go and check on them. Do you have horses that need to be put into another paddock or loaded into a float and moved away? What about if there's a tree come down across the road? Now, this probably feels like a lot of things I'm hitting you with right now. And you may not have all the answers. That's okay. But just imagine you're being hit with all this stuff and there's actually a fire. You're breathing smoke. You can feel that heat. I'd just like you to have a think about that and pop in the chat, if you could, one thing you could have done to avoid being in this situation. It could be anything. Just if you just want to pop one thing in the chat. What could I have done to avoid being in this situation? I think I've stumped you all.
Yeah.
Here we go. There's someone's leave first thing in the morning when a fire danger is announced. Fantastic, V. Yes, that's a great. Oh, someone's got their hand up.
That was me.
Do you want to speak, Tony?
Well, yeah, it's easy in typing because I can't type.
Fantastic.
Just you'd have all your say important documents in a bag or a box ready to go. You know, on those bad days. So, you know, you take radio.
Having a kit ready, having your stuff ready. Absolutely.
Yeah, emergency kit ready. Yeah.
Yeah. So some people will have it there and keep it at home with those precious things in, and maybe their protective clothing for that, you know, Ember Attack radiant heat protection. Other people will get their precious things and may take them to a relative who lives in the middle of a town somewhere over summer. A lot of people do that now. You know, they'll say, I'll leave it with the kids who live in, whether it's in Melbourne or whether it's in, you know, Camperdown or wherever it might be. But yeah, either having it ready to go or having it somewhere safe. That stuff saves you having to pack all that stuff up. Yeah, don't leave home if it's a bad day. You know, that if you're going to be there defending your home, then don't be disappearing. Yeah, make that your priority. Absolutely. And I know, you know, as farms, I worked on a dairy farm for some 7 years, and you know they don't desert their farm because that's their livelihood. So yeah, if it's a bad day, they may go down to the fire station and sit down there, but they certainly wouldn't be any further from home than the fire station. You know, they'll be ready to run back and get all the cattle up onto the concrete or whatever it is that they might need to do to protect themselves. So, and having a rehearsed plan, absolutely, Pat, that's a great thing. So have a plan, be prepared, know what you'll do, think ahead. So making the plan before summer. Having that Vic Emergency app is great because you can see if something has started. I mean, your plan may be that if it's a bad day, if it's a severe day, an extreme day, a code red day, to not be in a high risk place if you're not ready to defend your home. And defending your home is a very serious decision to make. It requires a lot of physical ability, a lot of mental ability, and a lot of equipment and preparation. So if you're going to plan to do that, make sure you really have a very good plan for defending your home, because it is a lot to do. So that's fantastic. The other thing, if you have a plan, it's worth rehearsing it sometimes, because as I said in that little scenario, sometimes you think it's going to take me 5 minutes to pack myself up, but you actually may find it takes 15 or 20 or 25 minutes to pack yourself up. And if that's the case, that may mean you're leaving it too late. That 20 minutes extra, maybe just the time that you don't have to get away then. So the other thing I'll quickly mention is that this time, at the moment, this year and last year also, consider COVID-19 restrictions in your planning. Often we used to tell people, you know, go to the movies on a bad day. Go and sit in the air-conditioned cinema and watch a movie. Head down to Warrnambool or head to Colac and go to the movies, or go to a shopping centre and hang out in the shopping centre for the day. Shopping centres probably still open, although there may be some shops closed. Movies may not be open. So if your plan is to, you know, get away to the movies for the day, just consider some things may not be open. Obviously, if you're in danger, you can leave your area. That's one of the reasons to leave your home. If you're in a lockdown, we're not in a lockdown in Darlington, obviously, but if that were to happen, I mean, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone, you know, later in the summer. Obviously, if you're in danger from a fire, your COVID rules don't count. Bushfire trumps COVID every time, but there may be some things that aren't available to you in your planning. So just consider that also. So now we're going to talk a little bit about survival options if your plan fails. So we've made a plan. That's fantastic. You know, I mean, even those scenarios, people thought they had a plan, but if your plan fails, super important to have that protective clothing. It gives you protection from that radiant heat to some degree, and from the Ember Attack to some degree. Obviously, nothing is bulletproof, but this will help you. Protecting yourself from the radiant heat. Remember that the radiant heat travels in straight lines, so you can take shelter behind a solid object or within a hollow solid object, such as a house. You know, rocks, even an earth embankment can give you some shelter. You know, if you happen to be in your car and you get caught in a fire, a pile of gravel where they're doing roadworks will give you some shelter. If you can put that between you and the approaching fire, that will give you some shelter. Anything is better than nothing in this survival point. This is really the pointy end of our talk. Some of it can be quite confronting, I understand that, but we want people to know what these survival options are. I don't know, some of you, probably most of you maybe, remember the 1960s grass fire that ran across the Princess Highway at Little River. There were people stuck in their cars, and there are people who died there. And the people who died there were the people who jumped out of their cars and ran across the paddocks. They had no protection from that radiant heat. The people who stayed in their cars actually survived because they were on the bitumen, which wasn't burning, and they were in their cars, so had some shelter from that radiant heat. So, you know, once again, remembering that it will go straight through glass, so it's getting down low in your car if you do get stuck in your car. Fantastic. If you have a kit, to have a woolen blanket in that kit, that will give you protection also from radiant heat. Make sure you keep that blanket dry, but keep yourself well hydrated, so having water in your car as well. So a few things to think of here. As Tony said, we don't have a neighbourhood safer place in Darlington. I think your closest ones might be Darren or down at Nurut. But certainly ploughed paddocks or a football reserve, you know, football ground, if that's short grass, green grass, if there's a green crop, you know, I'm sure the farmer will forgive you if you drove across his crop, if it's green, if it's not going to burn, if it's going to save your life. Big rivers around Darlington. I don't even know about dams. I can't think of dams. Is there dams up that way, or is it all bore water like Pompanese?
We've got a little dam near just behind Darlington. Don't know about the creek. Would be a good spot because too many trees around there.
Yes, most of the creeks, until you get down towards Warrnambool where the Hopkins gets quite big, you'd probably find that the extra fuel around any creeks would actually make it more dangerous rather than safer. If someone has a big in-ground swimming pool, it may give you some protection if there's nowhere else to go. But really, the solid buildings are going to be your best shot to give you some shelter. But if you are stuck in your car, it's getting to the place where there's least fuel or you're furthest away from the heavy fuels. So look, neighbourhood safer places we've spoken about a bit. They are not your first plan. They are the bushfire place of last resort. So they're the place to go if your plan has failed and you don't have anywhere else left to go. They're a place where you should survive if you are in a car, or you can jump in someone else's car, and you can take shelter. They are not a place where the Red Cross is set up with a tea and coffee for you and a bicky. They won't be pleasant. They will be smoky, hot. They could be on fire, but they're a place that, because of the lack of fuel there, they're deemed a more likely place for you to survive. So yeah, really, it's not your plan A or plan B. It's your plan Z, your bushfire place of last resort. And just a couple more images I'm going to pop up. So they may be a little distressing. They're just the sort of thing you may experience if you're driving with a fire. So if you don't want to see them, just turn your head away for a little bit. And these are the sort of things that you may experience. You'll be pretty much driving blind. There will be smoke, there will be spot fires, there'll be embers. It will be dark. You won't be able to see where you're going. you won't be able to see where the road is. It will be pretty horrifying, terrifying. So really, we don't want you travelling if there's a fire. If, you know, where SES talks about not driving through flood waters, it's just the same. Don't drive through fires. It's just not worth it. If you're driving and you see smoke ahead of you and you're not sure about it, turn around and drive the other way, because it is just too dangerous. And there will be big red trucks there and they may not see you either. So that's doubly the reason to not be there. So I'd just like to sum that up. Thank you very much for coming along. Please take action, make yourselves a plan. When this session ends, you will be taken automatically to a website where there'll be an opportunity for you to download some resources, such as Your Guide to Survival, Your Guide to Property Preparation. Please write yourself a plan, practice that plan, and we do have some bushfire planning workshops available. They will be coming up later in the year. So if you're interested in those, please, I think there's a little button you can click there to say you're interested in follow-up in a further session. Please make sure you've downloaded that Vic Emergency app and got it set up. If you need a hand, I'm sure you can grab Tony or someone else to help you set it up if you have trouble setting that up. Connect with your local community, your local brigade, and make sure, please be safe. We've got one more poll. I'm just going to, let me see, where are we? All right, now I'll launch the poll in a minute because at the moment I can't really see. Actually, no, I can launch the poll now. Here it is. Okay, there we go. So there's just a couple of things. It just gives us our evaluation team at Burwood a little bit of idea of how we're going and what you're getting from these sessions. So there's a couple of questions. Did this meeting give you a better understanding of bushfire risk in your local area? And would you recommend this program to family, friends or neighbours who live in a fire-prone area? So that would be fantastic if you could just answer those, because the very first poll and the very last poll are used by headquarters in Melbourne to see whether this program that we're presenting tonight is actually worth doing. So that'd be great. Thank you very much. I will end that poll now and I'll share the results with you. So did this meeting give you a better understanding? So there were some yeses and there was confirmed by already. Well, that's fantastic. I'm always happy with those. If I get no's, it makes me a little bit sad. And would you recommend it to other people? Yes, oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for that. I will now talk about, so your local district, if you want further information, advice, help with anything, please contact District 6 in Colac. Their headquarters are in Bromfield Street there. The phone number 5232 5600. And of course, talk to Tony or any of the brigade members there, and they'll always be happy to give you some more information or direct you to the community safety people like myself or Raj if you're wanting more specific information or help. And thank you very much again for coming. I'll just quickly say, if anything in this does trigger something with any of you, please, there is support available. It's okay that this stuff may trigger things with any of you. If you feel like you just need to talk to someone, please talk to a loved one about how you're feeling, what this has done. If you don't have someone available to talk to, or you feel like you'd rather talk to someone impartial, then please contact Beyond Blue or Lifeline. The phone number's there, Lifeline 13 11 14, always an easy one to remember. So don't forget that. Tony, Any closing comments you'd like to make?
No, just probably reinforce everything you said about especially leaving early, paying attention to your surroundings. Yeah, and just know that if it's all a bit, you know, when it's too late, you're going to have all those hassles on the road and other things that may impact your safety greatly. So it's all about being safe. It's also about keeping our guys safe, having to put them into risky situations, sometimes like one-way roads or whatever. Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tony. Absolutely. Look, every time somebody's not there, and you as a brigade know, oh yeah, so and so is not up at their house. That's one person you don't have to worry about trying to save. Obviously, if it's safe to do so, you might try and protect their house. But if you know there's not lives at risk there, it means you can actually concentrate your focus on elsewhere where there are people who need looking after. So yeah, absolutely, very good point to make. So everybody who keeps themselves safe and out of danger also keeps all the wonderful volunteer firefighters safer and at less danger also. So that's a great service that the community can do for the CFA volunteers as well. Well made point, Tony. Thank you. So look, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Pat, for your comments. Yeah, look, that's why we have two presenters, because things can go awry at any moment, and that's okay. We battle on as we do in CFA, and we're always there trying to help our community and look after our communities. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And I'm sorry I've gone a little bit. I try to keep it down to an hour, but we've gone to an hour and a quarter, so it's not too bad. Thank you very much, and have a great night and have a safe summer. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Garth.
And look, I will be here for a few minutes. If anyone's got any questions, I will be here for a few minutes. If Tony, if you want to hang on for just a minute or two.
I will hang on, Garth. Yeah,
like
no worries.
To pop in the chat if they've got any questions they want to talk about. But please, when you get to the website, when you do leave here, please, if you want to download any of that stuff, I think there's a little bit of a survey in there, how you found it. Also, I haven't actually been there lately. I think they're changing the site, so I'm not quite sure what you'll find, but hopefully it'll work. And if it doesn't work, then please get in touch with us through COLAC or through I think there's an email address where you sign up for this, or through Tony. He'll find us one way or another. So please, yeah, get in touch with us if you've got any questions. Thanks very much, everybody.